In this episode of True Crime Black, we look at yet another mysterious hanging of a young black man. The police immediately ruled his death a suicide. His family thinks that he was lynched. One of the many reasons for them to think that is the existence of a local KKK chapter in the community. Despite that though, the police haven't budged and the family has been looking for answers ever since. This is the case of Lennon Lacy. In 2014, 17-year-old Lennon Lacy had big dreams. He dreamed of being a star NFL player and making his family proud. Lennon attended West Baldwin High School in Bladensboro, North Carolina. While attending school, Lennon was preparing himself to realize his dream. He was a lineman for the Knights, the high school's football team. Lennon already had his goals set for his future at the school. He planned to make the varsity team and become their starting linebacker. While continuing to improve and impress, Lennon wanted to secure a scholarship for college. From there, he would make it to the NFL. As the school year was just beginning, Lennon was full of excitement for his big game. The Knights were going to be playing against the West Columbus Vikings. Lennon most definitely had this game circled on his calendar. He spent the entire summer training both on and off the field. Football was the constant that ran through Lennon's life since he started out as a peewee. He was very serious about being a professional and very passionate about it. He never changed his mind or wavered from the course. Those are the fond memories of Lennon's brother, Pierre Lacy. Lennon's friends also remembered his love for the game, and specifically his excitement for the competition against the West Columbus Vikings. Sadly though, Lennon would never get to make it to the NFL. He never even got to play in the big game that he spent so many days getting himself prepared for. On August 24, 2014, Lennon's body was found at the swing set in the middle of a trailer park. His body was hanging from the top of the swing set. Devastatingly, his body was discovered just 12 hours before the game against the Vikings was set to start. The circumstances under which Lennon died were not just devastating, they were bizarre as well. As per usual, the local police and investigators almost immediately ruled his death a suicide. Again, as per usual, the family disagreed and strongly felt that he was murdered instead. Not only that, they felt that Lennon's death was related to the fact that he was a black man. Lacy had been in a romantic relationship with a white woman. The family feels that the residents of the town, which were predominantly white, may have had an issue with that. The town's residents were known to have several Confederate flags hung on their houses, and some were rumored to be in the local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. The last time that Lennon's family had seen him was on August 28. He was preparing for his football game the following night. He'd washed his uniform and ankle brace and hung them up to dry. He then packed his gym bag and left the house to start his evening walk. This was a regular occurrence for Lennon as he often took walks around the neighborhood for exercise. His doctor had given him the recommendation due to his asthma. With the humidity being lower at night, and the temperature being cooler, Lennon's doctor felt that it was the ideal time for him to get his exercise without worsening his medical condition. Lennon walked out of his home at 10:30 p.m. that night. His family last saw him headed toward a dirt road. Lennon's parents went to bed before Lennon would have returned home from his walk. When they woke up the next day, they checked to see if Lennon was home. When they saw that he wasn't, his parents believed that he had gone to school before they woke up. Then, his mother, Claudia Lacy, saw that his football uniform was still hanging to dry. Claudia innocently believed that Lennon had forgotten to take his jersey before he left for school. She called the school to see if she could drop it off for him. That is when she was told that Lennon had not gone to school that day. Right as Claudia was hanging up with the school, she heard a knock at her door. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see the Bladensboro police chief at her door. The police chief, Chris Hunt, told her that she needed to leave with him. Hunt drove Claudia to the Cotton Mill trailer park, which was just a short distance from her home. Claudia was prompted to walk to the back of the ambulance where she saw a body bag. Inside the body bag was her son. While she was being told that Lennon had killed himself, Claudia remembered seeing scratches on his face and a very large lump on his forehead. They stood out to her because she knew he did not have those on his face when he'd left the house the night before. Claudia's observations would be consistent with what the mortician saw as well. F.W. Newton Jr. had been a mortician for 26 years and was well seasoned. When he saw Lennon's body, Newton said that there were cuts on his nose, chin, and cheeks. He also noted that there were large abrasions on his shoulders and the insides of his arms. The police, defending their ruling of suicide by hanging, said that those marks were caused by fire ants. There were medical documents that would be released later that would state that Lennon's body was covered in fire ants, and that some were even found inside of his body while the autopsy was being done. Newton didn't agree. He compared the condition of Lennon's body to victims of barroom fights that he'd seen during his career. He said that Lennon's body looked far more similar to theirs than someone who had fire ants crawling on them. Lennon was found hanging by belts tied together and made into a noose. When Claudia saw the pictures of Lennon hanging, she knew that something was wrong. The belts didn't belong to Lennon. Claudia had still been buying all the clothes that Lennon wore and knew that she didn't buy any of those belts. The police refuted this by saying that Lennon was not hanging by belts, but instead, he was hanging by dog leashes. And then there was Lennon's shoes. When Lennon had left his home the night before he was found, he was wearing size 12 Air Jordan sneakers. But those weren't the sneakers he was wearing when his body was found. When his body had been discovered, he was wearing size 10.5 Nike Air Force shoes. The Air Jordan shoes that his family saw him wearing have never been found. Claudia was beginning to question everything. Why would Lennon leave the house in his new Jordans, and then switch to shoes that were 2 sizes too small? Why did the smaller shoes have no laces? How did Lennon hang himself from the top of the swing set when he couldn't even reach it? The questions would continue to pile on as the case progressed. The police would continue to run with their suicide theory. They contacted the Lacy family and asked if Lennon had been showing any signs of depression in the days leading up to his death. Claudia did tell them that Lennon was sad. The day before Lennon's body was found, he had gone with his family to his great-uncle's funeral. While the family acknowledged that the death was very upsetting for Lennon, they did not feel that his grieving was out of the ordinary. They did not feel that he was suffering from depression. Despite that, the state medical examiner still included the death of Lennon's relative in their report. The toxicology report stated that Lennon had not had any drugs or alcohol in his system. Oddly, the authorities hadn't taken any swabs from under Lennon's fingernails. This would prevent them from ruling out the presence of any DNA that could be used to potentially identify anyone whom Lennon had been in contact with before his death. The police wrapped up their investigation in just 5 days. They told the family that there was absolutely no evidence to make them consider the possibility of foul play in this case. The family disagreed and thought that the investigation should have been going on for far more than 5 days. Lennon's girlfriend, Michelle Brimhall, agreed. She thought that he had been murdered. She recalled being confronted by neighbors about their disdain for her interracial relationship with Lennon. They told her repeatedly that it wasn't right for the two of them to be together. It got so bad for Michelle that she had to go into hiding after Lennon was found dead. She was afraid that her safety may have been in danger. It was even strange to Michelle that people knew about her relationship with Lennon. They'd kept it as much of a secret as they possibly could. They wouldn't even hold hands or kiss in public. When asked about their relationship, Michelle said, "I had never had a man treat me as good as he did, and I probably will never find another. Lennon didn't kill himself. He loved his mother so much, he would never put her through that. I want to know who did it. I want them to suffer." The difference in race wouldn't be the only reason that some were against their relationship. Claudia was not supportive of their relationship due to their age difference. Michelle was 31 years old and Lennon was just 17. Due to so many outside influences being against their relationship, Lennon and Michelle told the people in their lives that they were no longer together. They would then proceed to date in secrecy. Michelle also had an estranged husband who lived in Illinois with their children. There was some speculation that he may have been responsible for Lennon's death, but Michelle vehemently denied that he could have done something like that. A week after Lennon Lacy had been buried, someone defaced his grave. Flowers that had been left on the grave had been removed and thrown into a ditch about 40 feet away. It would turn out that a local teenager was responsible for this heinous act. He was arrested soon after. Carla Hudson and Dewey Sykes were a white couple that lived behind the Lacy family home. The couple was known by the local police for posting racist signs and Confederate flags in their front yard. Lennon's family wouldn't become aware of this until after he died. Dewey Sykes claimed that they posted those signs in front of their house because black kids in the neighborhood beat up his son, and he didn't want any black kids to step foot on his property from that point on. Apparently, Carla was against the racist displays in front of their home. She had allegedly told her husband to remove the signs because she didn't consider herself a racist. She also claimed that she was very fond of Lennon. She even considered him like a son. The neighbors were never considered suspects in Lennon's death, but their public displays of racism were not uncommon in the community as a whole. Claudia Lacy spoke out about how she didn't believe the local authorities were doing enough to investigate her son's death. The FBI would get involved and also claimed that there was no evidence to support investigating the case as a homicide. Claudia lost all faith in the authorities to take her son's case seriously, and she has been looking for answers ever since. To this day, the death of Lennon Lacy remains a very questionable suicide.